So you installed Linux, congratulations. Whatever the reason may be, privacy, escaping Windows or Mac, or you're a returning user giving it another go, but then you go looking for help online. And somewhere in that search, you stumble into something you weren't expecting. People arguing, not about desktop environments, not about distros, about the literal moment you press the power button. So, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about. 2 words. Init systems. Picking the wrong one makes you either a dinosaur or the last sane person left. Picking those has caused genuine internet wars in the entire Linux sphere. I think this fight needs to end. But before we proceed, here's a list of objectives what I'd like to achieve by the end of this video. So step 1. What is an init system? When you press the power button, your computer doesn't just jump straight into the desktop. Something has to run first. The very first program that starts everything else. That's the init system. Its job is simple. Wake up all your background processes, get your network working, get your hardware recognized, and hand things off to your desktop that can actually load. Think of it as the conductor of your entire operating system. So, why do init systems matter? Different conductors run their show at different speeds. Some start everything one at a time in a strict order. Safe, predictable, but it's slower. Others start multiple things at once. That's the core trade-off, boot speed versus how the system behaves when you ask it to start, stop, or restart something. Some init systems are dead simple. You can read exactly what they're doing in a few lines. Others do a lot more automatically, which is convenient, but it means a lot more is happening behind the scenes that you don't directly control. Now, you may be thinking, I never touch a terminal. I don't script anything. Why would I care about an init system running my PC? Because even if you never see it directly, you feel it. Boot speed, how fast your system wakes up from sleep, your background service, i.e. your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, your audio, all of that traces back to the init system. And even if you're considering switching to Linux, the init system it uses quietly shapes a lot of your day-to-day experience, even though it's never the thing being advertised on the box. So it's not just a developer's argument, it's underneath everything you do on this machine. So it's no wonder then why something like an init system this small can cause such a huge civil war online within the Linux world. So now I'll go into 4 different init systems. Let's start with the granddaddy of them all, SysVinit. SysVinit was launched in 1983. It came out of AT&T's Unix System 5, and for decades it was just what Linux used. Nobody debated it. Everything's organized into run levels, basically different states that your system could be in, like single user mode or full multi-user mode with networking. On boot, it works like a strict numbered order of scripts, one at a time. That's also, at the same time, its biggest weakness. One thing at a time means no shortcuts. If you've got 20 services to start, you're waiting for all 20 in a set order, even if half of them don't actually depend on each other at all. But the reason every init system that came after even exists was, in some way, a reaction to that slowness. Next up is Runit, the minimalist init. If SysVinit is the original, Runit is what happens when someone strips almost everything away and it still works. A Runit service isn't a big config file, it's a folder with one executable file in it called run. That's the entire interface, no special syntax to learn. It's built around 3 simple stages: boot, run, and shut down. And it treats every service as something to be actively supervised, not just started and forgotten. If a service crashes, Runit notices and by default restarts it. And this is the init system behind Void Linux. It's generally beloved for the circles that used it, because once you understand one service, you understand all of them. There's no hidden complexity waiting to surprise you. The trade-off is exactly what you expect: minimalism. Next we have the middle child, OpenRC. Born out of Gen 2, originally as a smarter replacement for those rigid SysVinit scripts, instead of a strict numbered order, OpenRC actually maps out what depends on what. Start your network before anything that needs internet access, start your file system before anything that needs to read from the disk, and it can run stuff that doesn't depend on each other in parallel, cutting boot time down without sacrificing the ordering that actually matters. And it's still just a shell script underneath. No new language to learn, no massive binary doing invisible things. You can generally open one of these files, know exactly what it's going to do, and this is the default init for Gen 2 and Alpine Linux as well. And now, it is time to talk about the big, the bad systemd. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but I don't think systemd is that bad. Alright, enough already. Systemd was built in 2010 by Leonard Pottering and Kay Sievers at Red Hat. And like anything we just covered, this one doesn't just replace how services start. Login, network configuration, device management and login sessions, time synchronization, etc. Systemd doesn't stop at start things in the right order. It absorbed almost every core function of a Linux system needs, all under one hut, all under one house, all managed the same way. And it's spread extremely fast. Fedora adopted it in 2011, OpenSUSE and Arch followed thereafter within a year. By 2015, it was the default on almost every major distribution: Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat, all of it. And that's not me being dramatic, by the way. That's an actual headline from back when this was happening. People called it a civil war before I ever put it in a title. Is one project doing this much generally better design, or is it exactly the kind of sprawling complexity Unix was built to avoid? And for me personally, I don't mind the fact that everything's bundled under one roof. Something else for me, and I think for a lot of other people, is what's problematic with systemd in general. You don't get a real choice anymore. And with systemd being forced onto a lot of distros, a lot of controversies has sprouted because of it. One particular controversy very recently was to do with age verification being added. So that's why a lot of people have a lot of bone to pick with systemd in general, just because of the way it's forced. And I think that's its biggest issue. Any major distribution, Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, NixOS, and you're going to get systemd, whether you like it or not. One of my favourite distros, NixOS for example, uses systemd. Linux has built its reputation about choice, and this one specific init, that choice has basically disappeared for most people. You, in theory, could rip it and replace it with OpenRC or SysVinit. I know you could do that for example with Debian. At the same time, other distros have appeared to completely rip that option out for you. Dev1 exists solely to remove systemd, and Artix as well for Arch users. But for the average person, picking a distro off a list is not really a choice being made, but like it or not, this is the reality we're living under right now. So to try and settle this once and for all, if you're learning Linux, you should learn all of the init systems, as that will give you the best breadth and depth and learning experience available. However, let's say you're trying to get high and you want to take this professionally. If you pull up almost any Linux facing job listing, it's almost built around systemd, because that's the industry standard. If my opinion amounts to anything, had you had a choice on whichever init system you would be able to use, I don't think this video would even need to be made. And if you wanted to know my favourite init system, well, I'll tell you. It's